Good afternoon, everyone. Just going to give everyone a minute or two to join. Well, thank you for joining this session on empowering student persistence insights from My Best. And today we have our colleague Precious Miller coming from Michigan Community College Association. She's the Director of Basic Needs and Belonging. And I'm going to pass it on to Precious so she can get started with her session. Again, everyone, welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. I don't know about all of you, but I am bursting with a new light and energy about ways to change and improve systems that support students. I am so excited about being able to share insights about My Best and the work that's been happening in the state of Michigan over the last couple of years. And because we have so many interesting and great things to cover, we are going to dive in head first. I am going to be sharing with you my why. As you begin to do some introductions in the chat, you can feel free to put your name, the institution that you're with in your role, alongside with your why. What brings you to this work? What gets you out of the morning? What makes you energized and excited? As change sometimes takes time to happen, it can be helpful to keep your why in mind. I am the product of a strong Black woman from Grand Rapids Community College, and my mother chose to return to post-secondary education later on in her adult life, but I was about 5 or 6, and I have active memories of my mom studying at the dining room table, and her choosing to re-enroll at a community college truly changed the trajectory of my life. I would not be here if it was not for my mom's desire to return to post-secondary education. And everything that I do, I see my mother's face in it, and that is my why. I want to make sure that students that interface with the work that I have the opportunity to influence are empowered to change, not just for themselves, but the individuals that are also in their spheres of influence. So I encourage you to think about what your why is. And if you feel empowered to share that in the chat, you can do so when you feel comfortable. As it was shared in the introduction, I am with Michigan Community College Association. We are an organization in the state of Michigan. We have a mission to be the unified voice for Michigan's community colleges, and we want to be leaders in 3 very specific areas: student success, talent development, and community vitality. And the My Best initiative that I share is a direct reflection of what we want to accomplish as a state association. So here is our very ambitious agenda. We have so many things to cover, but I recognize that there may be some questions that come into the chat at any point. I'm going to do my best to monitor those questions and ebb and flow with where our conversation takes us. But keep in mind that I will make sure that you all have the information that you need to put into practice some of the things that came as a result as the My Best initiative. But please feel free to put questions in the chat as you have them. All right, so now we're talking about addressing student basic needs in Michigan and the context that really started the work that we're doing. As the previous presenter shared, Eddie from ECMC Foundation, we were one of the 7 initial grantees in the 2019 cycle with ECMC Foundation to be a part of the Basic Needs Initiative. And it was really in response to the research done by the Hope Center and various others in our higher education landscape. And we quickly realized that there were some very challenging circumstances that our students were experiencing outside of the classroom that impacted their cognitive capacity to be their academic best as a learner. And so we developed the My Best initiative alongside other grantees to really support the learners in our campuses. So when we talk about student basic needs in the context of My Best, these are the things that we're referring to. We want to support students in having access to regular and nutritious food and safe drinking water. We're also talking about secure housing and reliable utilities. We also keep in mind dependable transportation, not just to campus, but to home, to pick up their loved ones who are at other places in their community. We want students to have access to dependable transportation to meet all of their needs. We're also considering safe childcare and safe elder care, recognizing that students are taking care of other individuals in their home that may not be their dependent children. And then the last thing we wanted to make sure we addressed in the My Best initiative was to have sufficient physical and mental health care. When we started the initiative, we were alongside various other grantees that you see listed here, and we learned a great deal. Now, in the Michigan context, I thought it might be helpful to think about the enrollment, the individuals that these initiatives are impacting. At least it's been helpful for me to put some context around it. And maybe it might be helpful for you to also do some deep diving as to the students that you're serving and hoping to impact. When we look at our total college enrollment in the state of Michigan, we're conveniently looking at a little over 100,000 high school graduates. And these data are reflective of those high school graduates who choose to enroll in post-secondary education 6 months after graduating high school. Starting in 2012, 2013, we had about 65.8% of that 100,000 student cohort choose to enroll in post-secondary education. And this is students who choose to enroll anywhere. It could be a institution in the state of Michigan. It could be an institution outside of the state. But in 2012, 2013, about 65.8% of them chose to enroll. As we continue on through the timeline, we see that the number of students who choose to enroll slowly has decreased. Currently, we're at about 20 or a little over 50% of students who are choosing to enroll. And we know that if we don't make some changes in the larger context of our students' experiences in higher education, we may not be able to anticipate seeing these numbers change. So in Michigan, we are looking at this as an enrollment crisis and something that we actively need to get ahead of now. Now is the time to act, and now is the time to respond. One last thing to note before I move on is that data is just data. Data doesn't have any feeling. Data is just presenting information. We as individuals are the ones who give data its meaning. Data is just information, and we can choose how we respond to it. And so the My Best initiative is one way we are choosing to respond to the enrollment crisis. Stressed Out and Stopping Out is a report from Gallup and Lumina Foundation, and they talk about the students who choose to enroll, but why they choose to stop their coursework in the middle of their academic semester. And there are several reasons. The top reasons are emotional stress, personal mental health reasons, the cost of the degree program, and the coursework being too difficult. Further down, we see some additional things to consider, but when we boil the top reasons to being stressed out and stopping out, it boils down to stress, cost, and course difficulty. So what can we do about that? Great question. I am so glad you asked. You all are a fantastic audience today. When we started My Best, we wanted to make sure that this wasn't just an initiative that sounded good to us at MCCA. We wanted to make sure that it landed on our partner institutions well. So we launched a survey and asked chief academic officers, what are the most challenging non-academic barriers that you are seeing to student success? Income and employment, food and transportation were the top three, followed by housing and utilities and childcare. And this was back in 2020. So we know that these data are different now, but this is setting the context for My Best. And we find even though these data are dated, it can still reflect some reasons as to why students would be stressed out and choose to stop out. So I thought it would be helpful to include that here. Now we're getting into the good stuff. My Best. My Best was centered around three specific goals. And the first one was to understand the needs of our students. Do we know who we're serving? Do we know who's on our campus? How are we building relationships with them? How are we closing the loop with students? That was the first goal. We also see in that first goal is to understand the community in which we are situated. We utilized our partnership with Michigan Association of United Ways to get a better understanding of the needs of our community, because we recognize that students are coming to our institutions from a community in which they are situated. So if we understand the students and we understand the communities in which they come from, it allows for institutions to be proactive about how to respond to those students' needs. The second goal was to integrate economic stability practices into the student experience. So how can we make sure that basic need resources are inescapable from the student journey? At every point, there should be a hint at or a signal to ways a student can access support. And that's where goal 2 came into play. And then goal 3 was about sharing practices across our state. We understand that challenges are going to happen, and sometimes it can seem as though those challenges are only unique to us. They're only unique to our situation and circumstance. But when we share and really take a closer view at what's happening and share those challenges, we find that those challenges aren't unique to us, and we can put our minds together and proactively or collaboratively think about solutions. So that's goal 3. Now, as we went about accomplishing the goals of those of the My Best initiative, the project itself was facilitated around 4 pillars of practice. And the first one was to understand student needs. The second one is to organize and connect campus supports. The third is to connect partner supports to students. And the fourth pillar of practice is to ensure students have access to support. And lucky for all of you, we're going to go through every single one of those. Understanding student needs is the first one, and it's about knowing what type of holistic needs our students actually have. And are we able to meet those needs at our institution? We can't serve students if we don't know them. And so what we did with this pillar of practice is we facilitated student focus groups. From those focus groups, we recognized that we should probably do a better job of communicating those supports to students. We had students state, you know what, I don't see my college as a place to receive support. So how do we go about normalizing that the supports are here? They are available. It's something we want you to access, and this is the channel how. From the student focus groups, the statement on the right indicates one strategy that institutions used as a result of the information collected from those student focus groups, which is to increase communication and share ways that what resources are available, where they can be accessed at various points of the semester, not just at the beginning or during orientation. The second thing that we did during the initiative to make sure that we understood the needs of our students was utilizing the Trellis Research Student Financial Wellness Survey. We are still using this survey to date. Hot off the press, we have the results for fall 2023 specific to Michigan community colleges. And we see here 60% of students worry about having enough money to pay for school. We also see that 73% of students see that higher education is a good investment. So it's not that students don't want to be on campus. I have never met a student who enrolled and said, I can't wait to not pass this class, or I can't wait to withdraw early. We won't hear that story because that's not the desire of our students. They want to be successful. We just need to make sure that we understand what those needs are and be able to anticipate them. So some things that came out as a result of scaling the pillar of practice around understanding student needs is to assess student financial needs during their advising appointment, ask pointed questions about the student's financial picture, and then support the student in creating a plan before financial constraints come into place. Or perhaps maybe some of those constraints are present at the time of that appointment. Support the student in pulling in individuals in their support system, some resources on the campus, and then bringing in community-based organizations to help offset some of those financial costs. Another thing that came out of this was an institution had a food pantry, and they sent a survey out to their students to just candidly ask, how are you experiencing the food pantry? Is this supportive for you? And the students said, you know what, it is really great that we have a food pantry on campus, but what I really need is access to a microwave. What I really need are pots and pans. Whoa, that makes me take a big, deep breath and say, okay, we still have some work to do to make sure that we're understanding our students. So think about your close the loop feature. How are you pulling in the student voice to say, you know what, these are things that we think are helpful, but do you find them helpful? And what ways as an institution can we continue to grow and learn? The second pillar of practice is to organize and connect campus supports, which essentially boils down to when a student is engaging with one support or office, they are naturally introduced or connect to another one. So more intentionally connecting campus departments. Colleges are doing great things, but if students aren't connected to them, if students don't know about them, then it's going to be a waste of time and space for us. What you see here is a graph from National Center for Inquiry and Improvement. They adopted this and shared this on their website. But it is a picture that shows us on the left side what we see as higher education practitioners, which is student services in one area, instruction is another area, and then special populations and groups is somewhere else. But what students are experiencing is in the middle, and then around the student, we'll see the teacher who believes in me. We also see the students I study with, the nice woman at financial aid. Students are seeing every person at the institution as a part of their student experience. So how can we make sure that students are naturally connected as they are engaging on our campuses? Bay Community College is a really great example here. They launched a survey to better understand their students. And they asked one simple question on that survey: who is your advisor? The student responded, it's the janitor. The janitor is their advisor. I was like, okay, tell me more. Why did students list that as their advisor? And what was responded was when it's time to re-enroll, or when students need directions to some place on campus, the janitor was always there and they knew every answer the student had. So Bay College said, okay, if students are seeing a janitor as their advisor, then we need to make sure that every employee, every person who steps foot to support students on our campus has the information and knowledge necessary to direct the students exactly where they need to go when they need to get there. That's centering the student. That's centering their experience. So some things that came out of scaling this pillar of practice is centrally locating resources. That often looks like a one-stop shop or a central hub for students. On the right side, there's a picture from Jackson College in their Student Success Center. And it's a specific picture that highlights something they call the family zone. So when the student is meeting with someone in student services, if they're meeting with a tutor or talking to their advisor and they have little ones, there is a space curated just for them. And I don't know about you guys, but if I was a student, I would say, you know what? I can bring my 8-year-old and my 3-year-old here and still get the information that I need from this tutor because I am struggling in that Gateway Core Success class. So that's something that came out of the My Best initiative. Some additional things to consider when you are connecting students to campus supports is connect the dots for students. Also think about yourself as the student. What is the student going to experience throughout their student journey? Who are they going to connect with when they are accessing your campus? Who are they going to connect with when they are looking for retention? Who are they going to connect with when we think about momentum and completion? Connect the dots for them. Also, having a list of campus resources for students to reference to is also something that's helpful. And then thinking about the warm handoffs. If I am meeting with the student, what does that warm handoff look like? And how do I follow back with that faculty member who submitted that student concern form to let that faculty member know that, you know what, you verbalizing this challenge for a student actually made an impact. It helped them be retained to the institution. And I celebrate you as a faculty member for being a voice for a student. The third pillar of practice is to connect partner supports to students. And this is about bringing community-based organizations closer to that student experience. During the My Best initiative, we heard some thoughts about community colleges becoming social service agencies. We don't need a duplication of social service agencies when community-based organizations are already the knowledge bearers of that content. So how can we bring community-based organizations closer to our campus? Some things that we did was to help, we supported colleges in having community partners come onto the physical campus to provide direct supports to students. Grand Rapids Community College is a great example here. They actually have a Department of Health and Human Services worker physically stationed on their campus and have a caseload of students on their campus and regularly connect with them where the student already is. It's a place that the community college has a specific partnership with their local DHHS office and split the financial salary of that individual in half. That allows for that person to be stationed on campus. We also saw a large increase in organizations, community organizations being socially located on campus, and then having a single point of contact for students who need access to external partners was another strategy that some institutions chose to uplift. Here is on the left side of this is an image of Grand Rapids Community College's Get Help page, and it's a website link that lists a variety of community-based organizations and campus resources that the students can tap into whenever they need it. What I also like about the Get Help page is it serves as a reminder for faculty and adjunct faculty of the resources that are available in their local community. That way faculty members don't feel like they always have to have all of that information at the ready at all times. All they have to do is put Get Help into GRCC search engine and it pops up right away for them. So some things that came out of scaling this specific pillar of practice is, again, connecting with external partners, advocating for the presence of external partners on campus. I've seen a lot of community colleges work with their local Michigan Works agency and having partnerships with them and having them come on campus and offering support to students. And then we also see and incorporate community tools and resources into students' instructional and non-instructional experiences. The fourth pillar of practice is ensuring students have access to supports. So ensuring students have access to supports safeguards students' ability to enroll and remain enrolled. Again, that's that Bay College example of the janitor being able to point that student into the direction of the resources that they need in the time in which they need it. Another thing that I really like about Bay College is that they have something called Bay Perks. Bay Perks. It's their website or their take on GRCC's Get Help page. It's a place where faculty and students can go to receive discounted services. They also link out to the My Bridges portal, which is Michigan's public benefit system where any Michigander can go to receive additional support. But I like the name of Bay Perks because it is just that. It is your right as a student to access the basic need resources available. It is your right as a Bay employee to access the resources available. So we encouraged faculty, staff, and administrators to recognize student financial stability concerns. And even we had a lot of faculty members and even institutions completely revamp their syllabi and have a best practice syllabi that outlined the resources available on campus and in the community and encouraged faculty to refer back to that syllabi at various points throughout the semester to normalize the receiving of help. It's like, I've never met someone who has a Netflix account or a Hulu account, pay for it and not use it. You are paying to be here either with your time as an employee or with your funding as a student. So it is your right to access these resources. Simplifying it for students is another strategy. Partnering with students in designing and conducting outreach was a big hit for a lot of our institutions. And then ensuring all faculty advisors know how to refer students. So how can you thoughtfully and intentionally bring different departments together to cross-share what is happening? Sometimes we can get really siloed in our work and not recognize that another department may need to know about this new resource or this new grant. So some things that contributed to institutions being able to improve those 4 pillars of practice are listed here. By far and large, when I interviewed institutions, they said that the My Best initiative directly aligned with the strategic plan of the institution, and that allowed for them to scale. Having leadership champion the initiative was another thing that really propelled a lot of our institutions. Something like institutions with the Trellis research data. They would go during their faculty development days and they shared the data with their faculty. Now, you know, you're going to get some faculty that say, oh, I don't know, should we trust this data? But we had some faculty say, you know what, it is really helpful to know the students that I'm serving. I didn't realize there were some financial constraints within the student experience, or I didn't know that there was the student concern form. Having leadership champion that message really grew this. Also, having deep faculty engagement was another thing that helped grow the 4 pillars of practice, especially ensuring that students have access to support. For some institutions, faculty members had mixed feelings about supporting the non-academic needs of students. And so what we often saw was institutions finding just one faculty champion. All you need is one. It takes one domino to tip over the rest. If you could find one great faculty champion to help share this message, it could go quite far. Student feedback was another thing that grew this initiative. We can't support students without the student voice. So how often can you bring students to the table? Also, compensating students for sharing their time is another thing that we saw. And then there was this sliver of hope that I couldn't leave out. Institutions that said, you know what, it has to get better. I know it's going to get better, is something that I think really propelled institutions to continue to go despite the challenges of the pandemic, because much of this work happened during the height of it. And the institutions that had hope, that centered their why, were really able to grow. So what's happening now? So with My Best, it was very systems focused and restructuring the college system to work for students in a more thoughtful way. But we recognize that there are individuals within those systems that also need additional support and information. So we developed something called the Professional Learning Space. And yes, it is free, FREE. They are short micro trainings that any person can access. And we've broken those down into 4 modules. We actually added a 5th module about data discovery. But the modules are broken down into parts, and within each module, there are various lessons. Each lesson has about 10 minutes or less. And I don't know about you guys, but I could spend 10 minutes on Reddit. I could spend 10 minutes on Facebook or TikTok. Spend 10 minutes in just one module or lesson. And you don't have to go in any specific order. You can choose your adventure in the professional learning space. There's also a certificate that you can download, and a 1-page infographic of the key takeaways from every single lesson. So what's happening next? We are cooking in the state of Michigan, and I don't think we are slowing down, not in the slightest. So some of you may have seen the new press release. The state has launched a basic needs task force in partnership with the Hope Center and the Office of 60 by 30 alongside and MCCA is in partnership with those organizations to do the facilitation of this task force. And we have various priorities and things that we want to elevate to the policymakers in our state. We also want to elevate things that colleges can do that they don't have to wait for legislation change for. So some of the areas that we're going to be hitting on the task force include affordability and accessibility, food insecurity, housing. Along with housing, we also want to do a deeper dive into transportation, especially for our rural areas in the UP, health, wellness, digital equity. We also want to look at data collection and disaggregating it by subgroups. And then we also want to do a deeper dive in college infrastructure. So what policy changes can we make, and what recommendations can we share with colleges that they don't need to wait for legislation? Another thing that we have cooking in the state is something called our barrier removal grants. These are overseen and distributed by the Office of 60 by 30. There's a $45 million investment into our higher educations right now, and there are various grants that our institutions can apply for. Everything from a quick college grant to just do an assessment. What are the needs of our institution? Start there. We can't address a problem that we don't fully understand, and there are grants available to fund that work. We also have more long-standing grants that either get dollars into the hands of students quickly, which is more of a Band-Aid. We also have grants that look at being a bridge. So what connections, what institutional changes need to take place to make long-lasting change for our students? How can we improve our systems? And then the last bucket of grants is about community action. What connections within our communities can we make to improve the student experience? I believe Dr. Sarah had hinted at this as well during her remarks, but the Food Assistance Education and Training Program, also known as SNAP-E&T, is something that we are looking to actively scale. What I appreciate about this program is that it gives colleges a financial reimbursement for a lot of the work they are already doing. In exchange, increases the funding available for student supports. And then the last thing that we're looking forward to is our coming Student Success Summit in the fall. We are going to be joined by Dr. Keith Curry from Compton College, and he's going to be sharing his information about the Level Up article. It is listed in my resources page. I'll share that out. Level Up is an acronym. It stands for Leveraging Explicit Value for Every Black Learner Unapologetically, and I am really looking forward to that. I went over a couple minutes, but I hope we have time for Q&A. Thank you all for the opportunity to share, and I hope I can connect with you. I am also on LinkedIn.
Thank you. Yes, we do have a couple minutes. Thank you, Precious, for your commitment to students in this work and for your enthusiasm, right, as you talk about the great work that you're doing, especially right now at this time, in general, in terms of the higher education landscape, right, and how to better support students, but also technically during there's been a long virtual convening. So, it's important to stay, connected, but also engage at this time, right? So we appreciate your passion for the work. So yes, at this time, does anyone have any questions? I know Carolina also put it in the chat. Feel free to put it in the chat if you do. And again, if you think of anything, feel free to still put your questions in the community board on the Hoover platform, because we still have access to that for at least another month, right? So you all have access to engage, to connect, to network with one another. So feel free to do that if you don't have any questions at this moment.
Yeah, I know it is at the end of the day, and there can be some competing demands during this time, but I truly mean it when I say I am open to connection. I think we learn the most when we connect. I do, at least. And so if there is anyone on the call who would be open to connecting either on LinkedIn or sending me an email and saying, you know what, I just want to pick your brain. Perhaps we could have a power hour together and just ideate and share, top of mind topics. That would be great. I see a question in the chat. How do you keep up your energy enthusiasm? That's a really good question. I really enjoy what I get the chance to do. And I see the the impact that it can have, and I believe in the work. I also have a very supportive team, which I think makes a big difference, and a really supportive leadership at MCCA. There's another question about major challenges and opportunities for your work in Michigan. Right now, SNAP E&T is top of mind for me. I think one of our great challenges is going to be simplifying SNAP E&T for the community college palette. There are some partnerships that exist within E&T, like partnering with your Michigan Works Agency, that is going to be really crucial for colleges. And if an MWA isn't ready to onboard a community college, it doesn't matter how ready a community college is. Another challenge is having the human capacity and capital to scale a program like SNAP E&T. But I think the MyLeap grants are going to be really helpful and instrumental in that. Another challenge, I think, will be thinking about community college differently. We have been doing the same thing for a very long time. And I think recentering the student and their experience is going to be a mind shift for some.
Thank you, Precious, for your time, for your engagement, for your commitment to this work and to better supporting students and the great work you're doing in Michigan. So I'm glad that you were able to join us and just talk about the great work that you all are doing, and also being so open to collaborate and connect with other folks here. If they want to, feel free to reach out and connect with Precious and see how maybe you can collaborate, can talk, pick her brain about how to scale such a program, but also try to get even like in terms of funding, right? What was that process? I know you mentioned it very briefly, right? Because you only have a certain amount of time right now, but that may be something that folks may be interested in, how to get more funding for basic needs security and other work that they're doing at their institution. So again, thanks again, Precious. We at this time are going to transition to the closing remarks. So everyone stay put, don't go anywhere. But thank you, Precious, for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you all.
Give me a second as we switch screen sharing. So again, at this time, we will start with our closing remarks. Dr. Claudia, you're on.
Thank you. Yep, still on. Okay. So just wanted to thank everybody. And gosh, Fresh, it's so hard to follow after you. Geez, you're right. Everyone's on the energy. I was thinking the exact same thing. So it's just been such a great day. And we just want to thank everybody, Precious, and everybody else who's presented for us today. And for all of you that have stuck with us throughout the day, especially to our team behind the scenes. We have been running back and forth all day, trying to make sure, people are getting fed and, tossing bananas at each other, whatever is needed. But the most important thing that I really do hope for everyone as they're starting to depart for their day is that you can utilize the resources, that was something that was learned. And also, if you have the opportunity to also share out whatever is working with others as well. So if you learned something today, that you can also share that out with others, or if you have something to share, that you can make those connections. I think at the end of the day, we all want the same thing for our students, to really be able to get them through at whatever level that they need, whatever level of support, as you all said, unapologetically as well. So those are some of the big things that I gained from today, and that I hope everybody can take away with them. And to make sure that everybody remembers that this information will remain accessible. So if there's an epiphany later on, or there's that moment you missed something, that this access is still available to you. And thank you, Mercedes and team. You guys did a wonderful job. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Mercedes to finish us off.
Thank you, Dr. Claudia. Thank you, everyone. I do want to take the time to thank everyone that attended any point of the day, right? It was a really ambitious virtual convening, but we knew this is timely conversation to have centered on how to empower students, foster equity through basic needs and financial support structures, right? It's very important for us to think about the student, as we've heard throughout the day, think about our students holistically. They have so many different identities that they hold, right? And at times we tend to just think of them as students, but they may be caregivers, right? They may be also, they may be siblings, right? They may have kids of their own. They may be working full time or trying to figure out where they're going to get their next meal, right? Or they might not have a home. So many different things that they may be dealing with that we may not think about, right? We just think about them, oh, they're a student, they're coming, and why are they not getting into our class on time? Or why did they miss this appointment? So I do think it's important for us to think about that and giving grace and kindness and empathy to everyone, not only students, right? But for us to think about that as we continue to bring in some of these best practices that you've heard throughout the day and take them into your institutions and figure out how to better support students, but also how to collaborate with everyone that's here, right? You have this Hoover platform that's still active. You can connect with other folks still. It will be active for at least another month, so feel free to connect. All these sessions are also being recorded, so you have access to them, and we'll follow up in the next 2 weeks or so with all this information as well, because it was difficult during the concurrent sessions. You had to pick one, right? And there's plenty of other great information that people shared. But I did want to thank, again, all the presenters that presented and the speakers for their insight, for their strategies, for the time that they're spending presenting today, but also all the great work that they're doing at their institutions, right? And I also want to thank the PCC team, as Dr. Claudia mentioned, for their hard work, for their support, for their encouragement throughout the planning process, but also today, also during this event. I want to continue, and also as I continue sharing slides and keep moving, right? I was supposed to show that earlier, but just to really think about equity, as our executive director, Lisa Castillo-Richmond, really mentions often, is that equity is a team sport, right? You are all doing great work at your institution, but we know it takes more than just your student support services office, admissions, or financial aid, or wherever your role is in the institution. It takes more than just one team. Equity is a team sport, but it takes everyone in the whole institution to really take buy-in into doing this work, right? And it takes intentionality. So we must continue to intentionally work, to cultivate care and support in our respective communities where students can thrive and complete their college education, right? And that is the goal. Because if we really start thinking about, one thing that I talk to a lot of people about is when we don't think about students holistically, we run the risk of students not entering into our institutions and not getting a degree. But if students are not coming into the institutions and they don't feel welcome and supported, guess what? Many folks may not have a job, because if there's no students in the academic institutions, there's no institution, right? So again, I think it's us thinking about the work and the way we support students in a very intentional way. I do want to also encourage all of you to take the time to, if it's not in the chat now, it should be, our survey, take our 2024 virtual ILEA Equity Institute survey. It is very important for us to hear your insight, your feedback. What did you think about the session, all the sessions today, all the ones that you were able to join and be a part of? There's also a QR code here. So please take the time to give us feedback. We're always thinking about how we can make it better, or what other themes we may need to focus for next year. This is our 4th Equity Institute, but we're planning to have plenty more. So again, we thank all of you for joining, for taking the time out of your day to be a part of this conversation. And again, please feel free to scan this QR code and take the survey at the moment, or the survey will also be in the chat. And you should also have received an email from me at this moment talking about filling out the survey as well. So again, we thank everyone for being a part of this virtual convening, and we look forward to connecting and being a part of these ongoing discussions and really this ongoing equity work, because we still have a lot of work to do. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your Friday.